Should you watch Dragon Ball Super? In my honest opinion, yes, but not really for the reasons you'd be thinking of. Dragon Ball Super was a continuation of Dragon Ball Z, but also kind of isn't. It's kind of in this weird place within Dragon Ball lore where it's before End of Z, like Daima, but at the same time, so many things happen that are just not explainable for the End of Z that it kind of feels like there will be a revision of how Z ends with its own separate Super canon. It's quite confusing, but you're not really watching Super for the lore because the amount of retcons is insane. Some of them really unnecessary, like the Potara retcon and many others. So you're not really watching it for that reason. You're also not watching it really for the new characters because we've seen Dragon Ball do this numerous times ever since the days of Launch, where we saw Launch and she was quite a pivotal character, and then all of a sudden we never saw her ever again ever since Z. The same thing is happening with Super, where in future Super arcs at times we didn't see certain characters anymore. However, this was really rubber stamped by Daima. We don't really get a mention of any of the brand new characters. Now there could be a season 2 in the works, I'm not sure. However, it kind of does show that you don't really have to know everybody and know everybody's history because Super continues to just change and retcon things, and I will talk about Daima later on, but it's not really for the characters unless if you're going to like people like Hit or Caulifla in them, even though Caulifla and those other characters are not really as fleshed out as they should be because the concepts are so interesting. You're not really watching for the villains either because Frieza becomes a main villain later on again, and to be fair, does his attitude change that much compared to what you see at Z and at the end of Z? Probably not. However, I can't stop saying however. We have to go back to the main reasons I would say you would be watching Super, and that is the fact that Super is the beginning of a new era in Dragon Ball. So there will be a lot of retcons, there will be a lot of brand new characters, there will be a lot of brand new powers, and you kind of need to know some of them. Like I said, you don't have to know everybody or recognize everybody because people change and characters change all the time without really much explanation. I mean, look at Vegeta's arc and how Vegeta basically regressed as a character in Super alongside Goku, to be honest, and how they are on new arcs that are also similar to older arcs, and it's quite strange to witness. But you have to know what Ultra Instinct is now. You have to know what Ultra Ego eventually will be in the future. You have to know about future villains like Moro. You have to know about the numerous amount of new Dragon Balls. You have to know about how the Namekians change over time into completely different beings. You also have to know how the Saiyans are basically revived. I feel like that's too big of a story to not use in the future, but knowing Dragon Ball, they might just change it again. I mean, they added a bunch of brand new stuff into Daima as well, so you don't really know what's in store for the future, especially since you don't know if they're gonna adapt the Moro arc accurately to the source material or not, because they didn't do that for the other arcs in Super. They changed quite a lot of things. Apart from Beerus, like the God of Destruction arc, apart from that one, I'm pretty sure every other one was changed massively. So again, you're not really watching it for any of those reasons except for catching up to the lore of Dragon Ball and where everybody is in terms of power level for the future. You're also watching for the new transformations. You're also watching for some of the fights as well. To be fair, a lot of Super fights are not really that interesting. They're quite boring because you know what the end result is, and there's not really much tension going on, which has been lost ever since Z. I mean, it's pretty obvious to know who's going to win or not. However, the Tournament of Power as well as the Tournament of Universes, where it's Universe 6 versus 7, those ones have moments of tension and are quite good at doing that. So at the end of the day, at least there are 2 arcs in there where there are some fights in there where you don't know what's going to happen, and it is exciting to watch. There's also cool fights with Jiren in the end, especially how it ends. It's such a cool moment between Goku and Frieza. There's also the fact of the Super movies like Super Broly and Super Hero, I mean, they're quite good, to be honest, in the sense of fights. The stories at times, not really. I'm not really much of a fan of the new Broly. I prefer the older psychotic Broly. I'm not a fan of he has this split personality thing either, the way that they're doing it in Super, so I just prefer the older Broly. However, I do recognize that the fight he has, the transformation is incredible. The same thing with Super Hero. I don't really enjoy that story that much, to be honest, apart from Pan and Piccolo. I just don't like how Gohan is portrayed in that story. It's a bit dumb, to be honest, but he does transform into Beast, and it is quite cool to see Beast. I don't like how it's done either, but it is a cool transformation by itself. It's kind of like Gear 5. Like, I don't like how it was done, but at the same time, I do enjoy the transformation. I will have an opinion on Gear 5 in the future, probably, because I'm not the biggest fan of it anymore. But anyways, regardless of any of that, that's the entire point you would watch Super. It's not really for the story. It's not really for much of the villains, because most of them suck, apart from the older ones. It's not really for the lore, because the lore changes with every single Dragon Ball IP, every single new series, it changes. It is all for some of the fights, but also to catch up with what's going on in the story for the future. Because if there's a future story that's better than Super, I think you would need to know what happened in Super to not only know if it's better, but to also complete some of the arcs that are introduced within Super, kind of like how Broly needs to master his Saiyan potential. So yeah, that would be the only reasons I would say you should watch Super, but at least it is somewhat a must-watch for the future of Dragon Ball. Anyways, like and subscribe for more discussions on not only Dragon Ball, but other anime, and catch you guys later.